Well, today I've got a special video. It's an interesting, fun one. It's one for the diehards. You know, those of you that eat, breathe, and sleep music, discovery. You crazies out there that don't have a life, that spend all of your time listening to music. Kind of like me. I don't have a life. And that's why I do this channel for the last 10 years. And one of the perks is you find some real gems that most other people are just not going to find. So this is highlighting two of those albums, two of those bands. Both bands are from the United States. Both bands released their records in the late 60s. Both are fairly heavy for the time and have a lot of psychedelic proto stoner sound to them. They're very early in the psych proto sound, you know. Two of the earlier ones that I've heard that have that really psych infused guitar, and a very, very, very underrated, unknown albums. They are on YouTube, and they've been on YouTube in full for a while, but there's just not much info about these bands, and they were very brief bands. They only released one record apiece. Those bands are, we got this one. This is called Joseph, from Texas, from the South. Their album was called Stoned Age Man. Found this on eBay, and listened to it on YouTube before that. It's a really good album. And the second is this one. And I've turned some people onto this one personally, which is kind of cool. Fans of the channel that I've actually shown this to that never had heard of it before. It's called Fresh Blueberry Pancake. Kind of a crazy band name. And the album is just simply called Heavy. And it is, in parts of it, it does have some heavy songs on it. Not the whole thing, but it's got some trippier and heavier psych parts to it. It does get pretty heavy, especially on the closing track called Stranded. Stranded is a really great track. Also, the first track, Hassles, is also quite heavy. This is a band from Pittsburgh, so not the Deep South, the Northeast. So we got two bands from the late 60s. This one, Stoned Age Man, was released in 1969. And it looks like Fresh Blueberry Pancake was released in, they released it in 1970. So, but they recorded it, I believe, in 1969. Both bands, again, did not stay together very long, broke up, as is the case with tons and tons of these bands that really kick-started that heavy psych proto-stoner metal genre in the late 60s, early 70s. So many of them only had very brief careers with only releasing one album, I think just because they just didn't have the backing. They didn't have stability from management, record labels, so they just couldn't stick around. The logistics of it. Back then, you got to understand, before the internet and all the technology, you had no real way of making money or being found out very easily outside of your local communities that you were from. So if you couldn't make it big and get onto record labels, if you couldn't get, management under control, you weren't going to have a very long career as a band. So back then, it was much harder to just kind of keep releasing albums even without mainstream record label support. That's why so many bands from this period had such short careers. The artwork on both of them is really cool. So Joseph Joseph's singer is pretty freaking insane. He's got this really gruff, manly voice. A very bluesy southern, you know, definitely a very southern type of band. Of course, you can tell it's from Texas. I mean, it's got a song on it called I Ain't Fattening No More Frogs for Snakes, and Cold Biscuits and Fish Heads. So, I mean, you can kind of tell what kind of album this is. It's very gritty, bluesy, southern style hard rock. The first half of the record is the best part of the record, by far. The first 4 songs are really, really great. The second half is a lot more hit and miss, but it's still worth listening to all the way through. And it's got a cover of The House of the Rising Sun. So, Fresh Blueberry Pancake. Like I said, the opening track and the closing track are both very good. Really, it's quite good all the way through. Clown on a Rope is a pretty popular song, I've noticed. A lot of people like that one. So, both of these bands are worth hearing. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the bands now. I wrote reviews for these albums, so I'll read that. I'll give you a slideshow of some of the pictures of what exists anyway. There's not a whole lot of pictures of these bands. And we'll talk a little bit more about the albums and the bands. So let's get into that now. Thanks for watching. Alright class, let's get into it. For you advanced students out there, the heavy rock experts, let's get into 2 very, very obscure albums for only the most dedicated of heavy rock listeners. First one we're talking about is Joseph and their release Stoned Age Man from 1969. This Texas quartet was formed in the late 60s by Joseph Longaria. He has this fantastic voice, this gritty, bluesy, macho voice, perfect for this southern Texas-baked band and album. He just snarls and howls his way through 6 original tracks as well as 3 cover tracks. They cover the famous House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, perfect for a band like this. It's a great mixture of primitive hard rock, unbridled blues, and savage psychedelism. It's got this low, husky, powerful, and aggressive voice at the forefront, which is only equaled by the heavy sound of the organ and the guitars. The organ plays a huge role in this album. It's just very organ-laden. If you're into heavy organ-laden, heavy psych, Proto, this is great for you. All 10 tracks are interesting. Magnificent duos, organ/guitar, rise throughout the whole album, from Trick Bag to Come the Sun Tomorrow. Indian drums and fuzz for I Ain't Fattening No More Frogs for Snakes. The sitar on Cold Biscuits and Fish Heads, or the bracing madness of Stone Age Man. As you might have guessed, being confronted to the commercial flop, they did not do much to promote the album, and they did not give Joseph a second chance, and the band's career stopped right there. Joseph's Stoned Age Man is really a great organ-laden, bluesy proto-stoner album from way back in 1969, featuring some pretty heavy stuff. Trick Bag is an awesome opening track. The songs I Ain't Fattening No Frogs for Snakes and Cold Biscuits and Fish Heads are very, very soulful, fantastic songs. Track 4, Stone Age Man, is definitely one of the best songs on the album, and really it's strong all the way through, so definitely check out Stoned Age Man by Joseph. The second album we're looking at is also from the United States, this time from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Formed in 1968, it is Fresh Blueberry Pancake, and their only album, Heavy. And it's titled Heavy, but it's not heavy all the way through. It's got some tracks that are not quite as heavy. It does have a handful of quite heavy tracks, including the opening track, Hassles, and they get pretty heavy on Stranded, the closing track, which is probably my favorite song on the album. It says only 54 copies were pressed, and they were used for promotion in plain sleeve with the sticker on shrink wrap, and it's now rather difficult to locate. So Heavy is considered by many to be one of the rarest, most remarkable hard rock albums of the early 70s. So, man, this album is one that I have personally introduced some people to, and I'm quite proud of the fact that they were pretty happy to have been recommended this album, and they definitely would never have heard it otherwise. It's always a great feeling. And that's actually the reason I started the channel, was to introduce these bands to people. You know, to just be the person that introduced all these all these very obscure bands to tons of people. It's kind of a little bit of a ego trip, but at the same time, it's just what I'm meant to do. It's something I'm passionate about doing. Is being a pimp for the music and promoter. And there's been a lot of people like John Peel. Made a whole career of being a very famous music promoter. People like me, we have our place. We have our duty in life. We have our calling in life. This calling came very naturally to me from an early age. I'm a firm believer that everybody has a calling in life. Everybody's meant to do something, born to do something. And this is just what I'm born to do. It just came to me as soon as I was a teenager. I just immediately was called to this music promotion. As soon as I had internet and I found a platform that I could use to do so, I just said, it's just like a mission. I just was driven to do it. And from such a young age, it has to be something that was just, God-given or whatever. Just something you're born to do. Everybody has something they're meant to do that they're really great at. So I really am thankful that I've been able to use the platform, massive platform like YouTube, and build a great channel. And now I'm able to show so many people from around the world music that they probably would otherwise not have a chance to hear. This is something that means a lot to me. I hope that these albums are interesting to you and that it expands your musical knowledge a little bit further. That's always my goal, and it really does make me feel good and fulfilled on a deep level. Thanks for listening. Doom on.